All right. Hi, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to the home brewing experience with Black Drop Coffee, hosted by the Scotch Plains Public Library. I'm Jennifer Miller. I'm a librarian in the Adult Services Department at the Scotch Plains Library. Um, so the library in the past few years has hosted a couple of programs dedicated to tea. And while I respect tea drinkers, I am very decidedly team coffee. So I think like many of us, I was thrilled when we found out that a brand new coffee house was opening up just down the street from the library. And so I reached out to them to see if they were interested in doing an informational program on coffee for us. And the response was super enthusiastic. So that is why I am pleased to welcome our presenters tonight. We have Black Drop founder, Melody DiGaetano, sorry, and Good Life Coffee Roasting founder, Michael Bonavita. So they are here this evening with us to go over different kinds of home brewing methods, talk about coffee flavor profiles, do a live demo of different coffee brewing methods, and they will be happy to take questions following their presentation. So I'm going to let them get started now.
Hi, everyone. Hopefully everybody can, someone just give me a thumbs up if you can hear us that we're off mute. Yep, fantastic. Welcome tonight. We realize 7 p.m. is an odd time to start slugging some caffeine down, but little sips and we will get through this together. Welcome, I'm Melody DiGaetano, the founder and owner of Black Drop Coffee here in Scotch Plains. With Michael, together, we created this experience for you here in Scotch Plains. Since for the life that I've been living here for the last 11 years, we have never had a coffee shop. And I got tired of driving 5-6 miles for some good coffee. So we opened something right here in town for everybody local. I am a registered dietitian by education. So food has always been a part of my life and passion as far as the way that I tend to live on a daily basis. Now I carry that idea through in everything that we do here at Black Drop. We try to make as many things from scratch as possible. And you'll know if you've ever been in, we talk about our vanilla bean syrups, our baked goods, everything comes from our hands to your cup on the daily, because we like to keep everything as fresh and healthy as possible. Michael here is a friend of mine for more years than I care to mention because it will age me. But when I had the idea to open a coffee shop here in Scotch Plains, it just happened to be that one of my closest friends is a coffee roaster and has an impeccable attention to detail, fantastic palate, and always listens to my opinions, which makes him a favorite man of mine. So we work very closely together in developing the blends of beans that we use, the flavor profiles that we want to present to you here at Black Drop. And it has become almost a signature of ours that our flavors from our cold brew to our espresso are something that are consistent and delicious every time that you enjoy something from us. So we won't go too much into our story much longer. We realize that we have coffee to get to. So I'm going to turn it over to Michael for a minute where he can talk about a little bit of the sourcing of our beans and some more about the two particular types of coffee that we'll be tasting tonight.
Thank you, Melody. And just to further Melody's point, it's a great partnership between us. She has an impeccable detail. She has a fine palate. And we make the coffee, we roast it. But at the end of the day, the thing is that coffee is not a finished product. So it's easy to mess up. You can have the best beans, the best grind. Technique is very important. And Melody and her staff do a great job of ensuring that. So a little bit about me. I'm a coffee business owner, but a barista by trade. So we work with espresso machines, but I did not grow up with an espresso machine. I grew up with the immersion machines. My grandparents were from Italy, so we grew up with what we call the macchinetta, and it's a form of French press drip coffee, and it's immersion because the coffee is soaking in or extracting all the oils and all the elements and particles of coffee. So as a barista, the thing that you forget over time is how simple and easy good coffee is to make at home. And most people don't have expensive coffee machines. So this is the two methods we decided to focus on, was French press, or as the French say, cafetière, and the pour over, which has been around for a long time, but has gained popularity in recent times. But the most important thing is sourcing good coffee. So recommend that whatever coffee that you do purchase is small batch roasted, local coffee shops, support your local business owners. And Melody did a great job in sourcing other products as well. And the small batch roast is very important because it's easy to nail down and get it right. Big commercial coffee companies have roasters that are bigger than the store. And so we like to keep things craft and as local as possible. And the grinding is very important too, especially in French press. So we pre-grind for you because most people at home don't have a grinder. But if you're in your supermarket, you can simply look for the icon on the grinder. There's a French press grinder. It's a medium coarse grind. That's very important. And the also works well for pour over, but pour over, we make a tad bit coarser, as you'll see. And then one of the most important factors and secret ingredient of coffee, believe it or not, is water. Unfortunately, we live in New Jersey, where the water has a lot of chlorides and it's hard water. So not only does it affect the taste, but it also affects the equipment. And it's very important to use purified water wherever possible. And Melody will touch base on that, is she knows that coffee is 98% water. And Melody will tell you what she did here in her coffee shop.
So because 98% of your caffeinated beverage is water, we needed to do something to make sure that the taste was consistent across all of our drinks, including our ice drinks with our ice machine, our drip coffee machine, the espresso machine, all run through a specific filtration system that doesn't just remove all of the sediment and particulates that are in the water, but they actually give back some of the particulates that we need to enhance the flavor of the coffee, helping to draw out more of its oils and aromatics. Now, the other side of that, like Michael touched on, is the equipment. Anybody that lives in town knows that your shower has buildup on every fixture and finish in there, the tiles, the knobs, the shower heads, and that's just a consequence of living in a town with some hard water. Now, not wanting that to affect the taste of the coffee, I put in a pretty significant sized water filter down in the basement, and it powers the water through the entire start to finish of the product. So our cold brew, our ice cubes, the dishwasher, the drip coffee machine, the espresso machine, everything is made with our filtered water. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to go out and get yourself a fancy filtration system, but if you're going to be making coffee from home, something as far, just the filter that's on the outside of your refrigerator will suffice. A Brita system, that's something that's not very expensive and can fit in your refrigerator. Even buying bottles of purified water work just fine. But we want to make sure that none of those chlorides and sulfurs that are in the local water affect the taste of the coffee.
And so the benefits of brewing at home is that the coffee is not continuing to burn. If you have one of those drip coffee machines, an 8 to 12 cup, and the coffee sits on the stove, after about 30 to 40 minutes, it's heating and the properties change, and it just more bitter qualities, the negative qualities of coffee come to fruition. So with these two methods, once you heat the water and pour, that's it, you're good to go until it's time to make the next batch. So you don't need an expensive coffee machine to make great coffee at home. These simple mechanisms have been around since time immemorial, and this is what we recommend for at-home brewing. Having said that, it comes down to water and then the coffee you source. As far as coffee has many different flavor profiles, from fruity to floral to chocolate, earthy, bread. So the most important thing is you don't want an over roasted coffee where all the oils are out. You want something light to medium roast is my recommendation, and then the flavor profile is up to you. So we chose two different profiles today, both different. One is more earthy, and the Sumatra has some chocolate notes, finishes clean. And the other is the Kenya AA, which has some floral notes to it as well. And the beauty of both coffee is that they come from high shade, high altitude regions where the coffee grows peak. So it's consistent rainfall, and the soil is extremely fertile and exemplary for coffee growing conditions. Having said that, coming to French press, so now we source the coffee, local, small batch. You have the water, that's very important, the right grind, and if one of those aspects is off, the coffee will be off. So it's similar, all goes into one, and then the most important is the hand of the barista, someone that makes the coffee that can put it all together. And these are the two home brewing methods that we selected. So most people have a French press at home, 3 to 4 cup, 5 to 6, and so on. Here we chose a 2 to 3 cup because that's the most standard size. And there's pretty much two pieces to it. There's the plunger, as you can see, and there's the French press carafe itself. So it's very important to know how to use these. And there's two methods we'll go over on how to make French press. It's very simple. And so, Melly, tell our viewers at home the benefits of French press.
Well, the benefits to me, number one, are cleanliness. I mean, this is one of the easiest things to clean up. You don't have an excessively large machine. There isn't a lot of space that this takes up. It's portable. Yes, some of our more, we'll call them coffee snobs, because lovingly I am a coffee snob as well, can take this with you. Just put it in a little to-go bag if you're going away for a weekend trip. I've seen people stuff it in their suitcases, not naming any names. And you can still have your great coffee anywhere that you go. It's not expensive. Having something like a French press that you can make every day and control the size of the cup of coffee that you have leaves for not a lot of waste either. So you're not brewing an 8 to 12 cup pot of coffee, letting it sit for hours like Michael referenced, and then dumping it a few hours in because it's either gotten to room temperature, the flavor and the taste has soured. And this is a very controlled method of just how much coffee you're going to consume in a morning. You can make large quantities with it by running multiple batches, or you can just make a singular cup for yourself if that's what you're feeling in the morning. One of the other things that I wanted to just touch on with the French press is it's very easy to use. This does not require extra equipment. Everything that you see here is what you need to make coffee aside from your favorite mug. So I'll let Michael go ahead and talk about what the coffee that we'll be using for the French press is. At this point, you should have your packets of coffee in front of you. They're the silver Sumatra packets. And if you want to open that up, give it a little smell. We have our mask on here, but we can still smell the aromas through it. And with a clean hand, just go ahead and pinch a little bit of the grind between your fingers and get a feel for how familiar that size is, that coarseness. So that way, if you're grinding at a supermarket or having something ground to the coarseness that you like for French press, you can almost commit that feeling to memory. So that way, you know that you're going to get the best taste out of your coffee.
And in addition to what Melody said, at the end of the day, the coffee doesn't lie. So if it's under extracted or over extracted, you know that you have the wrong grind size. So the end result is sort of the teacher, and it gets everything exactly. Also, Melody mentioned that what you see here is all you need. Obviously, we recommend as baristas something called a Gooseneck Kettle. It just comes out with an even more circumference pour to cover the bed of coffee, whether you're using pour over or whether you're using French press. But not everyone has a gooseneck kettle, so a standard pot or tea kettle will suffice for tonight. We also ask that you refer to your French press recipe card, and we're going to start with the first brew. So the Sumatra is one of my favorite coffee blends because it has my favorite profile. It has chocolate notes. It tastes like, I'm a big avid espresso drinker, classic espresso. So it does have those flavor notes. I drink drip coffee every so often, and when I do, I like to have similar flavor notes, and everyone is different. And I also like it because it does have some earthy tones, and it finishes clean, and it's a very forgivable coffee in that it doesn't turn to bitter taste easy, and that's very important to know. So that's why I like it, and this is what I chose. So one end of the spectrum, you have the dark chocolate, mushroom, earthy notes, and then we'll go more floral with the next brew. So for now, as Melody mentioned, make sure you get familiar with the coffee grounds. We like to pour it into a cup, as you can see, and then we take our tablespoon. But most importantly, you want to remove the plunger from your French press. And we said on the card to brew 24 ounces, even though that's not the ratio, but you always want to brew a little bit extra because you want to preheat your vessel. So it's very important that the hot water touches a similar temperature because that will also affect the brew. So we want to preheat the vessel as well. And then from there, we're going to pour that into the cup to preheat the cup. We want to sort of keep not much, we want to keep a consistent balance between the vessel to the cup, from the coffee to the vessel to the cup. So this is the gooseneck kettle I was referring to. And we want to fill it nice, like so. So from a boil perspective, you want to boil it, and just as it starts turning into a violent boil, you want to shut off the range and let it sit for a minute. And then once that happens, then it's ready to go. So from the violent boil to the minute, then what you're doing here, that's going to take the temperature down. Ideally, you want anywhere between 198 to 204 degrees, and that's for a consistent brew. So now from here, once we added the hot water, we're going to pour it into the cup. Discard the remaining, let this sit for a while. So our cup and vessel are extremely hot. That's very important. We'll let this sit. And then our recipe, the ratio is important. So some people prefer a 14-to-1, 13-to-1, 15-to-1, 16-to-1. It depends. If you do 13, it's going to be more bold and more water, obviously. To 17 is acceptable. Anything more than 17, it'll be watery. So for the purposes of this, we'll go for a 14-ounce, 14-to-1. So 1 gram of coffee, which is about 4 tablespoons. So we have our tablespoon measure. So we have 4 tablespoons. And now we want to start the blooming and agitation process in our pour. So we're going to water. So the biggest mistake people make with the immersion blends is they just pour the water immediately and plunge. They don't wait for the degassing process. And that's very important because that takes out the negative flavors of coffee. So first we want to pour about 30%. And so we want to start small circles to the outside. And you're going to notice that these bubbles are developing. And that's the degassing of the coffee. That's very important. That's fine. And now we're going to let this sit for about a minute. Okay. And sometimes what you can do is the coffee is going to, if you could see here with the camera, it's going to develop a crust. That crust is very important. So we want to ensure that all the grounds, we can take the back of the spoon, give it a nice, you never want to hit the edges, you want to stay in the center. And now the crust is developing further. So blooming is very important. And what we just did in touching, once we touch the crust, that's known as agitation. That's very important as well, just so you get a uniform brew. So essentially this has been sitting for a minute. Now what we want to do is we want to pour the remainder of our hot water. So furthermore, on the degassing, it's releasing carbon dioxide, which is very important. And so we let that happen. Keep going. And so this is about 14 ounces right here. That's fine. So you, like I said, you can do 14, 15, up to 16. And now we're going to put our plunger in. So now at this point, you have two options. You can do the traditional. Let me take a step back. We're going to want to wait for 4 minutes. So if you have a timer or a clock, we're going to set this for between 4 and 5 minutes. That'll give us time to talk more about the two methods. So once you wait out this period, and this is the hardest part of making coffee at home, is having to wait for it. But as you learn with anything else, good food takes time, good coffee takes time. Thumbs up if you're still hearing. Okay, thank you. So while this is waiting here, the technique is simple. You can just penetrate the crust slightly and hold it there after the 4 minutes, or you can plunge all the way down. Those are two methods. If you plunge all the way down, you risk bringing back the coffee that's settling at the bottom to come back up, and that can bring some negative elements to it. Or just by piercing slightly the crust at the end of our 4 to 5 minute period, you could then pour into it, and it'll be a more subtle, a lighter, but a full flavored, bold cup of coffee. So there's two options there. I would try them both to see which one you prefer for your taste. So this is what we're doing. This is the waiting out period for French press. And you could sort of smell the coffee coming together. And the longer it sits in water, the more caffeine, obviously. That's an important to note. And so that's what we're doing. And that's why it's so easy to brew at home and to take with you, because all you need is hot water, this beautiful French press, and the coffee of your choice. So more on the blooming, essentially, the importance of it is just letting the coffee qualities come to fruition. So in drip coffee at home, you're not getting a well-rounded brew. So the coffee's falling in the center, it's overlapping, and sometimes the water seeps through the side of the filter. One of the benefits too of French press is that you're not using a paper filter, which is important to note because some paper filters taste like papers. That'll affect your brew as well. So that's one of the reasons why I love French press and I prefer French press. Just a solid, well-rounded, good cup of coffee. So with this, you could drink it black, add milk, or some people I know add vanilla, and here Melody sells a great vanilla bean syrup too that I recommend at home. And it's a homemade one. And then we could also add chocolate, but I like to drink things black and I like to keep things simple and stay true to the coffee. And so we're at currently 2 more minutes left. So if you're following us at home, we basically did the blooming process. We let it sit 30% of the carafe. We made sure that's the degassing process. Then we helped it along slowly by stirring with the back of the spoon, and that's called the agitation process. And that just makes sure that all the grounds are wet, and so you get a great brew. And now we're waiting patiently, and then there's 2 methods that I discussed. The first is just when it comes time, and you'll see me do it, you want to slightly plunge it, I would say about a 1/2 inch, just to pierce the crust of coffee, and then pour. Or you could slowly plunge all the way down, but some carafes, the plunger sort of dangles a little bit. So like this one you can see here, and the grounds that are settling at the bottom will then pop up and it'll make for a slightly bitter taste. So we're gonna go with the first method, the one I prefer. And so we're rounding down the 4-minute mark. You could wait 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes. Some people wait 7 minutes. Obviously, the longer you wait, the warmer and the cooler it's gonna get. So 4 minutes, I'd say 5 minutes is perfect and ideal. So essentially what we wanna do here is we wanna take our index finger and just have some balance and control. And that's why I love immersion brewing, is you have the control. And that's all we did. We just slightly pierced the crust. So if you could see, we have a little bit of water that came to the top. And then you see the coffee's forming here. And so now you want to ensure that you hold the top and you want to slowly pour. And some people just pour enough for the cup and they leave the remaining liquid and coffee in the French press. I don't prefer that because the coffee is now less and you get more of a bitter. So I'd say just pour the whole thing out, whether it's 1 cup, 2 cup. So this obviously is a slower pour, but you're gonna get a less bitter, more rewarding cup of coffee. This takes time, but patience is rewarding. Okay, there's some left over. So you could see the crust remained intact up top, and there's the remaining coffee here. We're gonna finish pouring. So as I suggest, if you're brewing at home, use this to make 2 cups and then discard the rest. And obviously the best part, before we drink, we like to get a nice smell, everything come great. Delicious, excellent. And it's that simple.
So if you are brewing tonight with us, you can take a few sips, see what your nose hits first. The taste will change as the coffee cools down. You'll notice that some other aromas and flavor notes will come through as the coffee changes temperature. So while Michael's setting up for the next brewing method, you always have this conversation of health benefits of coffee. Now, there's a couple of benefits that we can talk about once you are consuming the coffee, but also since we have these leftover coffee grinds, these can be useful in everyday product. If you want to make a coffee scrub, let's say a body scrub out of your discarded coffee grinds, you can combine it with an oil, a body oil. Even olive oil is great for your skin. It's very anti-inflammatory. And this can act as an exfoliant, but the caffeine in the coffee actually will help tighten the surface of your skin. Again, that's why I look like I'm still 23. I'm over here rubbing espresso on my face every day. But it does, I mean, you can go in to find in any shop that sells high-end products, beauty products, that you will find something that is infused with caffeine or has a coffee aroma, a coffee flavor, let's say, but it's all trying to harness the power of the caffeine that can help constrict those blood vessels in your skin, giving it a tighter appearance. Now, aside from the beauty benefits of coffee, what that has been studied years and years now is what the antioxidant effects of coffee have. Now, the coffee berry itself is highly potent in antioxidants. We don't yet know how to properly consume the coffee berry, which is the outside of the coffee that usually gets discarded when you make coffee beans. But a lot of those antioxidants are still in the power of the bean as we grind them, use them, brew them. Off the bat, we know that coffee is a stimulant and can help increase your mood. It helps give you energy. Now, too much of that at a 4 p.m. coffee break may not be so good for your nightly sleep, but it does have those mood enhancing benefits. On the antioxidant side, and the quantity of vitamin B that is found in your coffee. And when I say this, I mean the effective dose of antioxidants and vitamin B in your coffee is about 2 full cups. So it's going to be 4 8-ounce cups of coffee, but we all drink more than 8 ounces in our cup. This is about a 12. You can probably get 14 ounces in this cup. So it's not much. It's not much that you need to consume on a daily basis to reap the health benefits of the antioxidant and the vitamin B powers of coffee. There has been plenty of documentation that it is significant to reduce liver disease. It reduces your incidence of diabetes. Most recently, some studies have come out, some really powerful studies coming out saying that it can actually help reduce cases of Alzheimer's and dementia. Now, I say that, and lots of work and research needs to be done to prove that and to see what really the consumption is to harness the power of those antioxidants and the vitamins found in coffee. But the studies so far are truly, let's just say, promising to say that maybe there is some hope for more of these neurological diseases that we all would like to be rid of. Michael is back. We're going to go ahead and transition into our pour over method. The pour over method, like Michael says, has been around forever. I mean, it is basically running your coffee through a filter. The technology, of course, has advanced, and you can find filters of just about any material. We're using an organic paper filter with no dyes. It actually transfers no taste into your coffee, and I would recommend highly finding one that was as natural as can be, no colors or dyes to it. And you can even just give it a smell before you buy it and see if that's something that you're going to notice as you transfer your coffee into your cup, if that aroma and taste is going to linger from the filter. These are very inexpensive, way less expensive than those K-cups that we all fill our coffee machines at home with. You can probably get a box of about 100 filters for less than $5, which will last you a very long time for some of us, like not mentioning any names. Other people who drink 7 cups a day might not last that long. Okay, I'm going to set up our pour over stand here. When you come into Black Drop, we are really quite specific with the dose that we use. So you'll see us measuring it out with a spoon, using a scale to do so. Once you have the right formula down and you know the taste that you're looking for out of your coffee, it becomes almost second nature for you to do this in the morning with just a tablespoon like we used before and the right ratio of water. So Michael's going to talk more about the formula to creating your perfect pour over at home. And I'm going to go heat up some more water.
Awesome. Thank you, Melody. And this is one of the more fun methods of making coffee. Makes you feel in control, makes you feel like a great barista. But it's important to note that you need to be somewhat precise with the dose, the grind size again. And the first thing we do is pre-wet the filter. What that does is that removes a lot of the taste of paper. So too much cardboard taste, paper taste will ruin the effect of coffee. So we want to get rid of that. And obviously with pour over, you have to use a gooseneck kettle. If you don't, you can make do with a tea kettle or even like a large glass measuring cup that you would use for baking. And so you have the pour over vessel that essentially, and you have either a stand or sometimes they sell these online or in your retail stores. It's just into the cup. So you do this, put it over the cup with a filter. This is a nice method as well. There really is no wrong method. It's whatever works for you. So ideally, what we'd like to do, we want to start by wetting the ground. So we're going to get some of the gooseneck. Melody will pour. So you want to make sure you're wetting at least 90% all the way around of the paper. So in doing so, you want to go a little bit more. So we want to heat the cup as well. Keep going, heat the vessel. And so also what this does is this allows for the coffee grounds to settle in nicely and grab the filter. So that also helps for the blooming and agitation process as well. That's fine. And then as this is heating up, we're also going to take this and heat your favorite mug up by pouring the water from here into your favorite cup. Okay. And now, if you open up the Kenya, I'm going to remove just the top of my mask. So you want to really smell the flavor notes in this Kenya. Now, in the Kenya AA has amazing fertile volcanic ash soil. It's great. It's amazing for coffee growing. Again, lots of rain, high shade, high altitude, very important for optimal coffee growing region. Also, this is ground a little bit coarser than the French press. And so you want to see, as you're smelling it, you do get some fruity notes as well, but with the blooming process, it'll come more into reality. So we take our tablespoon from prior, and we're going to go around, put this one back in. That's one. I mean, you want to be precise. We suggest 3.5 to 4 tablespoons. You can go more. Again, it's how bold do you want to be. And then last but not least. And now, with the French press, because with the pour over, because it's in a cone shape, that initial coffee bed is not even. So you want to either flatten it with what I call the tap method. You can tap it like so, or you can take the bottom of the spoon and just flatten it yourself. Nice and even. And then we're going to take our Gooseneck Kettle. And again, the blooming and agitation, we want to essentially don't want to pour straight. You want to pour in even circles, small even circles from the center just to the edge, but you don't want to go over the edge. You want the edge to get wet, but you don't want to touch the edge. And make sure, however fast or slow you're pouring, that it's even, it's steady. And so here we're going to start just until it's covered. And again, I'm going to try to maneuver the camera just so you can see what's going on here. Can we lift it up and over just to show?
Let me know if that's okay.
Yep, keep going. I'll come closer to you.
So as you can see, the small bubbles that are forming, again, this is that degassing process that Michael spent so much time reviewing during the French press demo. Carbon dioxide, the gas that's being released, has a naturally sour taste to it. So if the gases cannot release properly within the first 30 seconds to a minute of your brew, you will have some of those sour notes that linger. Now, Michael's talking about the tasting notes of coffee, and bitter and sour are never tasting notes of the actual coffee. That is a consequence of either incorrect grind size or the brewing method has been compromised somehow.
So I want them to see how you pour, so continue with the pour. And so watch how Melody pours with a consistent flow, and she's doing small circles from the center just to near the edge, never to the edge itself, because the water will seep through and go down quicker. So again, agitation, we want to make sure all the grounds are wet and that nice crust is forming. And if you were here, the aromas are incredible. I'm going to keep pouring. So now we started out just covering the initial coffee, and now we're going to go with a slow pour, keep going. And so some cones will pour over baskets are deeper than others. You want to go to about 90% to the top. And so you could even stop if you'd like. You get more water. You can see what's transpiring here. Back it up a little bit. Okay. Yep. And the aromas are incredible. we're getting some blackberry, we're getting some hints of caramel. It's just amazing experience. And so there's still coffee in, and it's continuing the drip method. So this is why people love pour over method and French press method at home. It's just doesn't compromise the integrity of the coffee. You have control as the at-home barista. It's very important to note. And everything matters, from the water to the quality to the grind size and the attention to detail. And as far as the amount of coffee to put, we use it as a benchmark, the ratios. But if you want them a little more bold, you can add more. If you want a little more subtle, you can add less. I'm going to finish it off. And that's perfect. And this is what we want. And so the flavor profiles of coffee go anywhere from one end of the spectrum. There's actually a flavor spectrum of coffee. You could find it online. And so you have the fruity and the florally, you'll have jasmine notes, lavender notes, you'll have some rosebud. And then in the chocolate, you have different types of cacao and caramel. And then to herbs, you'll have some parsley, some thyme, you'll smell some. It's really herbaceous as well. And that's when coffee is pleasant. And then all the way up to bread, you'll have bread-like. But what you don't want is something very acidic, like battery acid, or something that's funky. So whatever flavor profile you want, you always want to ensure that it is smooth and it's pleasant to the nose. And so here we are. This is very nice. Continues. And so what I like to do is I like to cover with my spoon and discard the remaining.
So if anybody watching tonight is a fan of wines, you know that the decanter serves as a way to aerate the wine before you go ahead and indulge. Now, what I like to do takes a little practice and does make a little bit of a mess, but as you're pouring into your mug that's been heated by our water, you can just give it a nice, start off short and give it a nice long pour into your mug, so that way you're getting some aeration to your coffee. That's too hot for me to hold.
Well, I will do the honors. Cheers to you at home. Enjoy. This is perfect. What I love about it is you don't have to wait. You just dive right in. It's excellent. It's very pleasant. Some rich. You have some nice nuances at the end, what we call the retro palate. And the beauty of pour over and French press is the flavors stay with you 5 minutes after you drink. So it's pleasant to the day. And after you finish the cup of coffee, it still lingers and stays with you for a little while longer.
We are nearing about the 15-minute mark to the close of our presentation. So I would love to hear any questions if you wanted to type anything into the chat. I don't know if you have the ability to unmute yourself for any questions, but Michael and I are here. We can pick our brains about just about anything we know about coffee. And if there's anything that you want to know about not coffee, probably answer that.
Take a picture so I can
Yeah, let me just say really quickly, that was absolutely fascinating. I am really looking forward to finally doing my French press and my pour over methods properly. I think the quality of my morning coffee is going to improve vastly after watching this. So yeah, please feel free to weigh in with your questions. Like you said, you can speak up or type them into the chat. If you did make a cup this evening, we'd love to see it. So, do you have a question?
I have a question. I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, first of all, which was which, the silver or the gold as far as the coffee types, what the bags you gave us?
So the silver is the Sumatra that we use for your French press. And then the gold was the Kenya double A that we use for your pour over.
Okay, and what's your opinion of the Hawaiian coffee, Kona coffee, as far as comparing it to other coffees?
Well, I can tell you that I had the pleasure of doing the coffee tour in Kona myself. So I'm a little partial to the coffee in Kona, mostly because then they served you a delicious plate of pineapple. That was never a bad choice there. I do prefer it, and it really is up to preference. I will never get on here and say one coffee is better than another. It really comes down to your taste and how you prefer to drink your coffee. I fell in love with espresso in Portugal, which is a very distinct flavor profile to coffee. But I also love a Honduran, and the Sumatra is one of the ones we use here in the shop. So I'm consuming it daily.
I did try your Hudson coffee. It was very good. I really enjoyed it. It was
Thank
nice.
you.
Very good.
And Kona is fantastic. We're supporting the United States. It's coffee grown here in the States. It's very important to know. And again, the biggest recommendation I have is always, when you're sampling coffee, always try it the way you normally take it. So if you don't drink coffee black, don't taste it black. Taste it with however you try the coffee. That's how you're comparing apples to apples. Obviously, as a coffee company owner, I'm partial to black coffee so I can try the coffee, but it's not for everyone. So it's a particular taste. It's for people to decide. There's not one better than the next. Just make sure, like I said, go back to make sure it's small batch. It's not roasted in larger facilities. Obviously, the freshness is important. Look at the bag. You want to make sure the bag is sealed properly and has a vacuum valve. That's important. And obviously, some people too, they add alternative milks like coconut, oat, almond. That also changes the aspect of the coffee. So the fruitier coffee will sort of fight more with the oat and the coconut and the almond, whereas the medium roast, darker, it will enhance it some more. That's my opinion. And just keep drinking coffee and stay caffeinated is my recommendation.
Yeah, well, thank you. We really learned a lot tonight. It was excellent.
We have a couple of questions coming in from the chat. One is, do you sell the coffee in your shop? Yes, Ruby, we do sell the coffee in our shop, not A. We do currently have our espresso blend that we use for all of our espresso-based drinks. We have our single origin Ethiopia coffee, which is one of our lighter roasts that we have. You will get a lot of citrus notes and blueberry in there. And we do have the Sumatra already ground, the Sumatra that we used for your French press tonight, and also the Sumatra that we use for our drip coffee when you're here at Black Rock. Another question from the chat, is there a coffee grinder that you recommend, or are they virtually all the same? They are not all the same. As most things, it can run the gamut of something that's highly expensive and something that is very inexpensive. The old adage, you get what you pay for, is mostly true with everything, and it does happen to be true with coffee grinders, depending on how extensively you're going to work your grinder at home. The grinders that we have here in the shop have to handle a heavy workload. I do not recommend that you get something on the scale of what we have here in the shop, but Michael can speak more to that of some specific brands that you will be using at home.
So essentially at home, you're not grinding as often as Melody alluded to in a coffee shop is high volume. You want to, the first and foremost important thing is the burrs, which are the coffee blades, which do the grinding, and the RPMs, the revolutions per minute. So obviously you want a burr that's about 54 or 58 millimeters for at-home brewing and at-home grinding. And also to note is very important that they do sell these powders online that clean the burrs every so often. So everything matters. It's cleaning the vessel that you pour the coffee in. It's making sure the water is proper, making sure that there's not leftover coffee in between the brews. That leads to bitter and unpleasant tastes. So like I said, the first thing I mentioned is coffee is not a finished product. You have a lot of control as an at-home barista, but there's some grinders typically, from $200 to $600 range. If you're looking for an at-home grinder, there's also the handheld grinders, which aren't bad as well. Those you turn sort of like a pepper mill. And again, if you're making coffee for one or two every so often, that's fine. If you want to grind on a daily basis. But the most important thing is you don't want equipment that does all in one, grinder, brewing. So you want your brew separate, your grind separate. That's very important. Jack of all trades, master of none.
We have a question from Caitlin. What is the best grind size for an Aeropress?
Again, for the Aeropress, you want more of an all-purpose ground. So it's not as coarse as this. So sort of a little bit step finer for this.
So Caitlin, if you have your open bag of your Kenya AA, just go ahead and give that a pinch. You can liken that or describe that to something that you're familiar with. For me, that feels quite coarse. Caitlin, not if you have your bag open. Yeah.
Hi. Yeah, it's Karen. My daughter had my computer last, so I'm signed in as her. Yeah, so just the regular all-purpose grind is fine for that because I usually use the Aeropress in the morning because that's the easiest way to do it.
Right. If you get something that's closer to the finish of baby powder, you've gone too fine.
Correct. So
Okay.
you're looking for a fine sand.
Okay.
So you do want some coarseness. You want to feel it texturally speaking, that it's massaging your sensors on your skin.
Okay.
But you don't want it very coarse where it falls out. So
Okay.
even when you're doing this and feeling the grind, it's sort of sticking to your skin,
Okay.
but not as fine as baby powder.
Okay. Thank you.
You're
And our family loves your shop. My husband's been in quite a few times, and my daughters love your baked goods. And the Salted Hudson's my favorite too. So thanks.
Yeah, that really put us on the map last year at the farmers market. And I tell this story often to people that come in that I had every intention of taking it off the menu once winter and fall rolled around. And I'm pretty sure I would have gotten run out of town if I did that. So it has stayed. It is now has a permanent spot up on our board here that Nick from Cymax in town has patiently created with me. And the Salted Hudson is not going anywhere.
Any more questions?
Okay, we just have a couple minutes left. If there is anybody that wants to get in a last minute question, you can add it to the chat now.
Yeah, I know you don't recommend it, but sometimes we have cold coffee and I just like to reheat it. But am I destroying anything when I do it with a microwave?
Woo! I will keep my personal opinions out of this and speak strictly from a taste perspective. Yes, so anything that you are, I mean, if you take not just coffee, but anything that you're reheating over and over again, you're going to lose a lot of the moisture by reheating it. So it's going to become a little bit more concentrated. The oils, again, are going to keep reheating and reheating. And if you've ever burned olive oil on a stove, you know that it smells, it becomes rancid. And it's really the same concept with coffee. Coffee has a lot of oils. That is what you are extracting during both of these brew methods that lends to the aromatics and the flavor. And by reheating and cooling and heating again, you are denaturing the structure of those oils, and it will change the taste.
The only thing I recommend you ever reheat is cold brew because it's never heated to begin with. So it does make a decent cup of coffee. I mean, you could actually take cold brew from your favorite coffee shop, mine is Black Drop, and take it and heat it home because it's not heated the first time. So also the more times you heat it, the more acidity too. And that if you have some stomach issues or digestion issues, that'll play a factor as well.
Thank you.
New messages here in the chat. Let me just make sure we can get to those before we close out. Okay. To the microwaver. Well, your son-in-law's calling you out here. Just
It is an
letting you
important question though.
know. Just let you know.
We're all guilty of the same.
Yeah. Just don't tell me.
Sometimes you just need to drink something fast.
That is true. That sometimes you do just need to drink something fast.
And again, these methods, if you don't have time, I don't recommend them. So these are methods if you have a nice night, you want to relax after dinner with dessert or in the morning on a Sunday brunch. But if you're in a rush and you don't have time to do it right, I don't recommend you make it at home.
All right, Amy, you are welcome. We appreciate being a part of this town. We appreciate having the opportunity to come and provide this demonstration for you. Sorry, we only had an hour. Michael and I, as you can tell, can talk for hours and hours on coffee and food and everything science and nutrition related that happens to affect your body. We hope to be able to do this again. But I am right down the road, so you can come in, pick my brain anytime. I live here now, so this is.
Smell the aromas, it's intoxicating.
Yeah, my hair constantly smells like coffee. It's fantastic.
It was a pleasure. Looking forward to meeting you guys at the shop.
Thank you. It was a
Yeah,
pleasure.
well, I just want to really thank both Melody and Michael. This was super informative. Your enthusiasm really comes through and made it entertaining. So we really appreciate your sharing, both your expertise and your obvious love for what you do with us. This was super informative. So yeah, I will, like I said, we recorded this. Hopefully everything will turn out, and I will send everybody a link where you can access it, so you can, review some of the details of the brewing methods if you like. I hope everybody got a chance to pick up the lovely sample bags. If you didn't, you can get them tomorrow. Try to get them as soon as possible. I would also like to thank Rachel Schwartz and Amanda Nadelkoff for their hard work in making this all happen. I think they have a lot to do with assembling those really lovely sample bags.
Mhm.
So them, and thank you everybody for sharing this evening with us. Happy coffee drinking.
Thank you.
We'll see you in the morning.
Okay.
So much.
Didn't see your hands.
All right, good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.